Thank you for watching and welcome again to our show. This is Frank Avila, your host, and I want to thank you, everyone who makes the show possible. Cable Access Network, CAN TV, which you're watching this in the city of Chicago on either channel 19 or 21, or maybe watching this in the suburbs or on the internet on YouTube, but what used to be on either Blip TV or Google Video, but now on YouTube. And I want to thank Pops William Gadomski's on almost every show, and Freddie the Oak Tree Oak, and the San Patricios LLC, and everyone else who makes this show possible. Thank you, Gilbert Villegas, for being on our show. Candidate for Alderman in the 36th Ward, endorsed by the Illinois Committee for Honest Government, one of the sponsors of this show, and someone I think who is a great man, a great person, and would make a great alderman. So don't change that dial if you live in the 36th Ward, and even if you don't live in the 36th Ward, you need to watch this because he'll be one of the up-and-coming aldermen out of the 50 aldermen in the city of Chicago, and the only Marine and veteran running. Not only the only Marine, but the only veteran.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's correct. In the 36th Ward, absolutely.
Okay, and one of the few running in the 50 wards.
That's true.
You used to have more. Maybe it's a generational thing.
Yep.
But you don't have that many veterans anymore.
That's true.
Especially with Balser exiting the council.
Correct. And the city council is losing a big advocate in Alderman Balser, and so that's where I'm looking to pick up where he left off and making sure that veterans' voices are heard in the city council. I'm excited that if when I get in April 7th, that I'm going to carry that mantra of making sure that veterans are at the table.
And I know that you've been involved in veterans housing, veterans groups, and I've seen you very, very active in veterans organizations and veterans issues. And there's a veterans housing now in a Hispanic area, and that you and I attended and were part of. I must give a lot of credit to Christopher Lafayette, who was a big part of that, and also veterans housing Waukegan that I've been at with RULAC runs their immigration clinics out of there, which I participated in. So you need to elect Gilbert Villegas, my veteran brothers and sisters who live in the city of Chicago and those who live in the 36th Ward, because we need this veteran voice. And those who don't live in the 36th Ward, we still should donate our time and money and effort and knock on doors and make phone calls, because we are losing Alderman Balser and we are losing a voice for veterans. And now with Governor Quinn exiting, I hope Governor Rauner does do it, but Governor Quinn, whatever people thought about him and other issues, he did go to all the funerals of the servicemen who died in combat from Illinois.
That's correct. That's one thing that I really supported Governor Quinn on. When he was lieutenant governor.
And as of yet, Governor Rauner has not committed to doing that.
That's not good. He should, because again, our veterans, they're the backbone of this country. Freedom isn't free, and we need to make sure that we're taking care of our veterans.
Okay. So the only veteran in the 36th Ward, the only Marine in the 36th Ward, and a voice and advocate for veterans, Gilbert Villegas. So I know you've already been on our show, no stranger, and of course Illinois Committee for Honest Government, one of the sponsors of the show, endorses you. My father, Commissioner Frank Avila, endorses you. But for those maybe who didn't see you on the first show, either on the internet or on TV, tell us in a couple minutes, who is Gilbert Villegas? Give us that 3-minute bio.
All right. Well, Gilbert Villegas is, as you mentioned, a Marine Corps veteran, a small business owner. I was also a Teamster for almost a decade, where I represented dock workers and drivers. I was also a deputy director with the Department of Transportation, where I oversaw a multi-billion-dollar capital program and made sure that minority and women-owned businesses were participating on publicly funded projects. I also was the associate director at the Hispanic American Construction Industry Association, HACIA, where I represented over 300 companies and was instrumental in drafting and getting passed legislation that ultimately became law to level the playing field and give opportunities for minority and women-owned businesses. And that's where I caught the eye of, at the time, Governor Quinn, who recruited me to his administration to be the chief of staff at the Capital Development Board, which is the agency that does all the vertical construction in the state of Illinois, where I oversaw 140 people, a $25 million operating budget, and a $3.9 billion capital program successfully. And so after 3 years of doing that, I decided to open up my own consulting company where I assist small businesses and medium-sized businesses that are looking to penetrate the public and the private sectors.
That's an amazing bio, a very impressive bio. So let me ask you another question then. So it seems like, you had a small business, you were doing well in government. probably making good money. Why become an alderman?
Why?
Is it kind of a pain in the neck? All the constituents, my cat's in the tree, I need a new garbage can, my son needs a summer job. Why become an alderman?
Well, I see this as a continuation of my public service. As a Marine Corps veteran working in government, I see this as an opportunity to serve the public again. But this time from a position that I can really impact change. I've been able to pass legislation in the General Assembly to level the playing field, and also have been a voice for small businesses, and I want to be that voice for small businesses in a city council, but from an elected position, because again, there's a lot of elected officials that are elected that represent our communities, but again, they have their specialties. Some are in education, some are in health care services, some are in housing. But we don't have that small business advocate, and that's something that I'm going to do as a
small businesses, of course, are the backbone of America, and a bigger employer. I think over 50% of all, or maybe it's 80%, some huge number, whatever it is. I don't want to misquote a statistic. Are the ones who employ people. Most people work for small business, not big corporations.
Correct, and I want to make sure that the small businesses that are looking to open up in Chicago are not bogged down by all the bureaucracy that's currently in place.
Chicago's a very onerous place to start a business.
Correct.
In terms of getting permits and zoning and taxes and fees and regulations.
In some instances, I've heard 120 days to get an awning for your business. I mean, that's ludicrous. And
so that's why the Cubs almost left. They were going to go to Rosemont. Businesses are leaving left and right. And it's very hard. And the parking is terrible. The sales tax is the highest in the country.
Correct. And so we have to take steps to be more business friendly. Because again, those are the entities that create jobs, local jobs.
Well, you've seen a shift in the economy. I've had a guest on previously. Sue Garza was running in the 10th Ward for Alderman, and we were talking to her, and I had Rich Martinez, another candidate in the 10th Ward previously, who's now supporting her, and they talked about how 20, 30 years ago, for many decades before that, how you had still mills. That one still mill alone would employ 10,000 people, and inside the still mill you'd have a commissary, grocery store, and you'd have a hospital inside the still mill. So you'd have almost towns within towns, and very vibrant bars and restaurants in each block that were open 24 hours, and people starting early shifts, night shifts, and fairs at high schools, and then a college fair. They had a still mill fair,
Wow.
And then the economy changed. So you're talking about small business. In Cincinnati, Procter & Gamble supposedly, employed 25% of the town. My grandparents on my mother's side are from Peoria. They work for Caterpillar, and they had the best benefits. Detroit, worked for GM or Ford or whoever, and that all changed. So now big corporations are not the employers. They've outsourced. They've moved overseas. They've downsized. So small business is really where it's at in terms of economic development, in terms of who's going to fill your vacant storefronts in your ward, and jobs.
Correct.
And I think that's tremendous what you're doing.
Yeah. And so we're uniquely positioned on the northwest side of the city, where the way that the ward is drawn, the southern portion of the ward, Grand Avenue, is just a great access to state routes, as well as very accessible to the expressways. And so I view that as more of a light manufacturing corridor, where we're going to take advantage of enterprise zones, hub zones, federal, state, county, and city incentives for businesses to relocate there.
And what about, you're not far from the airport either?
That's correct, we're not.
Okay, so logistics in terms of, or whatever other travel, you're not far from the Kennedy, I know?
That's correct. We're right in between the Kennedy as well as the Eisenhower.
Okay, and you're not far from 294. You might have to get on it at a different route, but 294 is just west of you.
That's correct.
Okay,
Yep.
So you're really at a great position, geographic advantage, as they would say, in terms of attracting business and some very large streets in your ward.
Yeah, but we also have to be very cognizant of the fact that our advantage of these major routes are also our disadvantage, because we have suburbs that surround us as well. So you have Elmwood Park, Park Ridge, that are also competing for these types of businesses, and I think that's where we need to have an alderman there that's creative in making sure that those incentives that are available are really creating these types of jobs for the residents of the city of Chicago.
But that's what you did in state government, too.
Absolutely.
And and as a small businessman, you know what those needs are.
Absolutely, and that's exactly why I'm running again, because it's about experience. When we take a look at the candidates that are running in this race, It's going to be a clear choice for the constituents. You want inexperienced versus experienced. You want independent versus machine. So it's going to be very clear, April 7th.
And you have a diverse ward. Obviously, it's a majority Hispanic, but you have a large Polish population and a Polish American culture and little corridor in your area.
Correct.
That, with restaurants and bars and banquet halls and the like, and other types of stores that cater to people who speak Polish or are Polish immigrants or Polish Americans. And you have part of the old 36th ward, which had Italian American population, Italian immigrants as well, Americans of Italian descent, and of course majority Hispanic, Mexican Americans, Puerto Ricans, of course, are already United States citizens. So it's really an interesting, diverse mix, and I think you can build on that for vibrancy as well as businesses based on those communities.
Right, that's going to be our advantage, the diversity that's within the ward. I mean, you talked about the 66% Latino, 28% Caucasian, and just the fact that there's so much diversity in the 36th ward.
And really, within the Caucasian, you have subgroups, obviously,
correct,
that are very dynamic and very involved.
Absolutely. And so we've done a great job of reaching out to those populations, those constituents, and making sure that we're communicating in their dialogue and that they're comfortable with. Trilingual literature. It's been very challenging, but nevertheless, we want to make sure that they understand that our office is going to be very receptive to making sure that we have Polish-speaking people, Spanish-speaking people, and then obviously people that speak English.
Excellent. And will that be reflective in your office also?
Absolutely. Okay. That's a commitment that I've told the constituents, the Polish community specifically, that in my office you're going to have someone there that's full-time working in that office that can speak Polish. And not there on a part-time basis, but on a full-time basis.
Okay, that's excellent. That's excellent. And will you try to get more than one office? I know that you're limited on your budget.
You're right.
So, but sometimes in one ward, like the other guests I've had, they've had these huge wards with multiple neighborhoods in one ward.
Right.
So how do you do that to serve multiple neighborhoods with? I know you get a limited budget, limited staff as a freshman alderman.
Yeah, I'm going to take a look at some of the state elected officials that are within the ward and kind of find out where they're at, and maybe sometimes team up with them on a satellite office, maybe pay a little bit rent in order to have an office there and, on a part-time basis. But the way that the ward is drawn, it's like a horseshoe. And so the big landmark in the 36th ward is the Brickyard. So everyone's familiar with the Brickyard. And so I jokingly tell people that my office will be at the Brickyard. You can visit me and then afterwards go right to Target to purchase your goods. But that makes the most sense to have it located by the Brickyard. But again,
You also go work out because I have some friends who work out in the Brickyard.
Exactly. But I am going to be taking a look at seeing which elected officials, state or Cook County elected officials have offices that are located within the 36 that I can partner up with.
Now, if you were elected, what would be the first thing that you do?
Well, one of the first things I want to implement in the 36th ward is what's called participatory budgeting. And every alderman gets $1.3 million to spend on menu money, and I want to let the community assist me in identifying which projects we're going to work on together. $1 million of that will be decided by the community. And the way that, like I said, the way that the map is drawn, we'll have two community representatives from the southern portion, the western portion, and the northern portion that will have equal votes, and we'll meet, and this committee will get input from the community as to what projects we're going to identify, and then from there we'll put it out to the constituents, those that are voting age, that are registered to vote, and we'll get them to vote on which projects we want to go ahead and tackle first. $300,000 of that will be set aside for contingencies, but also in case there's an overrun. I want to make sure that we're again, democracy is a good thing. I want to make these are their tax dollars. I want to make sure that they have a say in how these tax dollars are spent.
What do you think the three most important issues are in your ward?
Right. So number one is public safety. That's something that I've been hearing going door to door. Is public safety. Education is another important issue. Neighborhood schools. I'm a big proponent of neighborhood schools. I'm a big proponent of an elected school board, and I like the Sun-Times model of the hybrid model, where you have a mix of elected school board members and then also education policy experts. And then the third thing is economic development. We want to make sure that we're creating jobs locally and making sure that we're taking advantage of as many incentives as possible.
Okay. Well, I think you identified what I think are the key issues. So how would you partner with existing institutions in the community to try to address these issues?
Right. Well, the one thing that is lacking in the 36th ward are community organizations. chambers of commerce. So what this race has done is it's energized the community, and all of a sudden we have about 3 or 4 community organizations that are starting to form, and they're just forming within the last 3 months. So I want to work with those organizations already and kind of make sure they have the resources they need in order to thrive. My aldermanic office is going to be a business incubator. I want to make sure that the Chamber of Commerce has access to my office for whatever needs that they're looking for, because there's no Chamber of Commerce in the 36th Ward. So in the past there was a Fullerton Merchants Association, and since then it's become less active. But I want to make sure that there's a Chamber of Commerce in the 36th Ward and make sure they have the resources they need.
Now, I know Belmont runs through the 36th Ward.
Right, so the way that it's gerrymandered in Belmont and Central, you have 3 aldermen that are converging on the corner of, in between Belmont and Henderson. You have 3
and that's
aldermen.
a traditionally Polish business district, Polish American
correct.
district. Yeah.
That's correct. Yeah.
And then you have Grand Avenue goes through the ward.
Yes, Grand Avenue is the
southernmost
light,
point.
yeah, the southernmost point, but it's also the light manufacturing zone that I want to create to try to get more businesses to come, manufacturing jobs in that area there.
Now, some wards, I have some African American aldermen that have come on. I had a candidate running in the 17th Ward who said there was no sit-down family restaurants. Alderman Howard Brookins came in and he had a community benefits agreement when Walmart came in, and there was very little retail. They did food. He had a photo oasis compared to other African American wards. Now, your ward is different because you do have retail, you do have that. But what is missing in terms of either that side of things on the retail side, or if there is some big box side of, or is it that you're missing family-owned business? What are you missing there in terms of retail or restaurant side?
Right. So there's manufacturing, light manufacturing that's missing there. But along Fullerton Avenue, you have 50,000 vehicles that travel a day. And so when I am going to get maybe go see a football game or a soccer game, we're having to go to different parts, maybe like by Division and Damon, to these nice sports bars where these nice restaurants are located at, because for some reason businesses are not locating on Fullerton Avenue, where there's 50,000 vehicles that travel a day. And I think the main reason why is because there hasn't been an alderman there that's business friendly and really wants to take advantage of attracting some of these businesses. So I've already been in contact with the Chicagoland Chamber of Commerce, the Illinois Chamber of Commerce, World Business Chicago, to talk about what are some of the companies that are looking to relocate or expand in the city of Chicago. And I want to let them know that as alderman, I want to welcome them to the 36th Ward. And I want to make sure that they understand that they have an alderman there that's going to work with them to make sure that they're successful.
Red tape, see
exactly.
what incentives are available.
Absolutely.
That exist.
Right. I want to make sure that they're successful, because if they're successful, that means our community is successful.
It also means jobs.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Local jobs.
Local jobs, right? That's important.
Right.
Local jobs. So you mentioned, public safety and crime. Does your ward have a gang crime issue?
Yes, and it's mainly on the southern portion of the ward, and ironically, real close to the 25th district. And the reason why there's an issue there is because, again, with the redistricting that occurred, you have aldermen that knew they weren't going to service that area any longer, and so they just abandoned that area. You have the 31st Ward, the 37th Ward, and the 29th Ward that make up the majority of the southern portion of the 36th Ward. And since they knew they weren't going to represent it, they just let it go. And so as a result, there hasn't been a focus from any leadership in the 36th Ward. And as a result, these gangs have begun to fester. And for some reason, the police department knows that there's an issue there. But again, what has also occurred at the 25th District is that we've had 4 commanders in the last decade. And so you get a commander that comes in, he or she's about to implement their plan, next thing you know, they're getting transferred. Then a new commander comes in, and guess what? They have a different plan. And so by the time they're ready to implement that, they're getting transferred. And so there hasn't been any sustainability or any consistency in any type of plan, to any approach to combat crime. And so our office is going to be that conduit where community policing, we got to build the trust between the community and the police department. We got to build that trust, and that's something that I'm going to do.
Now, do you have any experience in dealing with public safety issues? I know most of your experience is business, but I always say that business is interrelated because you don't have people breaking into your business. You have to deal with
Right.
the kids who are in the neighborhood, stuff like that.
Right.
So tell us a little about your experience in terms of dealing with public safety, and if you have any other plans on. So you need consistency. You need, if not a permanent superintendent, people go, but somebody who's there for a period of time.
Correct.
What else? Tell us a little more about the public safety
Well,
issue.
again, we need to make sure that community policing is funded. I mean, there's been a cut in community policing. We need to make sure that we need an audit of the police department in their functions. And so wherever there's an opportunity to put a civilian in and get a sworn officer out on the street policing the community, we need to do that, because again, we have these sworn officers that are sitting behind the desk doing an administrative function that perhaps we can put a civilian in there and get as many officers on the street as possible. We also need to make sure, again, we talked about trust. We need to make sure that the community trusts the police and the police trust the community, because what happens sometimes, we passed out 1,500 we call police signs, and about 200 of them went up. And I was like, why isn't the community putting these signs up? And so I went to some of these houses where I personally passed out the sign, and they're like, well, we don't want our house to be known that we call police, because we don't want to be targeted as someone who's snitching on these gangbangers here. And I found that disturbing, because they didn't have confidence in the police department, no trust. And so what we got to do is we got to make sure that, again, we're both sharing information. There's a partnership. And once that's established, I think we'll have an issue. We'll be able to solve this issue of these gangbangers in the 36th ward.
Now, the law enforcement side is important, of course.
Yes.
Arresting people who need to be arrested and put in jail. Police presence. But what about the side of social services, education, helping kids learn there's other options, or providing options to kids? Because there's some kids who are kind of on the border. They're not bad kids, but maybe they don't have a father figure, or they don't have a good male role model, and the gang gives them a sense of identity, a sense of belonging. Right. Or criminal activity is something they're doing because they're not getting positive attention.
And that's where I see, like, again, these community organizations that have just started to sprout up in the last 4 months. That's something that I'm really interested in seeing what's going to be their main focus, because I don't want to have organizations that are duplicating services. So if there's organizations out there that are primarily targeting the youth, well, I want to make sure that they have the resources necessary. I want to make sure that the high schools in the area have Steinmetz College Prep, and then I also have Prosser Vocational School. And one of the plans I have with Prosser Vocational School, again, I was endorsed by the Chicago Federation of Labor, and I want to work with the building trades in order to bring some curriculum to Prosser Vocational School, especially for those kids that might not want to go on to college.
And minorities are unrepresented in the trade, specifically Hispanics, but also African Americans, in high-paying trades.
And that's the main purpose why I want to get this vocational schools curriculum and have the unions buy in. Local 150.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, Local 150, the electricians. We want to have skilled trade laborers out there, because again, the Latino community, we're on these construction projects, but mainly we're laborers. We want to make sure that we want to make sure that they're in skilled positions as well, because ultimately, just Latinos being entrepreneurial spirit, at some point they may want to start their own company because now they have this skilled trade. And so I'm looking more at the long term of giving these kids that are not going to go on to college another option. You have either go to college or you have the military, but now I want to make sure there's an opportunity for these skilled trades, making $30 to $40 an hour. Not a bad living, Frank.
No, it's a very good living, and I think very important, because some kids don't need to go to college, or they're not prepared to go to college, or not everyone has to go to college. And being an electrician, IBAW or 150 or carpenter or masonry, whatever it is, are very good livings.
Absolutely.
And the Hispanics and other minorities are very underrepresented.
Absolutely. Yep.
And I think in your ward, I think it's a great idea. Now, what I'd like to do right now is take another break for you to say, again, your name, what ward you're in, your punch number, your address, phone number, email, website. It should all be running on the screen, but I want you to tell that to our viewing audience right now.
Gotcha. Gilbert Villegas, number 53, running for 36th Ward Alderman. My office is located at 3318 North Central And my email address is very simple, Gilbert 2015.
Okay. And when is the election?
The election is April 7th. Early voting starts March 23rd and runs through April 4th.
Okay, so early voting starts March 23rd. The election is April 7th. And are absentee ballot applications already coming out, or now what is called mail-in ballots?
Vote by mail is applications are already being distributed, and so if you think you're going to be out of town, we encourage.
Although you can do for any reason.
For any reason, but
Right.
if you're going to be out of town or you think you're not going to be able to make it, and you want to take advantage of vote by mail, contact our office.
Now, if there's a senior citizen or somebody that can't get a ride, they don't own a vehicle, or if the weather's inclement, whether it's in early voting on election day, can they contact your office for a ride?
Absolutely, they can contact our office.
Now, again, why don't you give us the phone number of your office?
773-844-3948.
Okay. Now, what if anybody has any questions? Something I didn't ask you here, whether you support this or against this. What can they do? Can they
Absolutely.
come to your office, visit your website?
I would encourage them to come to my office. I'd love to have a face-to-face opportunity to speak with them. But if they're unable to do that, or maybe if I'm out on the streets knocking on doors, they can send us an email at gilbert2015.com. Leave a question there, and we'll make sure that we respond within 24 hours.
Now, what if somebody wants to volunteer on your campaign? Is there somebody you should talk to? Let's say they want to help you. They like what they saw on this TV show or a previous TV show, and they want to help you. They either want to knock on doors or make phone calls or whatever way they could help you.
Right. I would definitely in the 36th ward, if you're interested in volunteering and making sure that you elect an independent voice, I would encourage them to come to our office at 3318 North Central. As soon as you walk in, someone will be there to greet you and make sure that you're not wasting your time.
Okay. And who has endorsed you so far? Can you give me a list of your endorsements?
Well, let's see here. So on the labor side, it's Local 150, Local 134, the CFL, Chicago Federation of Labor, the Fraternal Order of Police, elected officials, Congressman Gutierrez, Congressman Quigley, State Representative Luis Arroyo, Representative Lisa Hernandez, Representative Chapalavia, Senator Iris Martinez, Senator Willie Delgado, and then just last night, the Chuy Garcia endorsed our campaign.
I saw that.
And it's going to be very important. He won the
Chuy
ward.
Garcia won your ward.
He won the ward.
If elected, he'd be the first Hispanic elected mayor of the city of Chicago.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So it's great. It's a great movement that's going on in the city.
And you're part of it.
That's right.
Gilbert, thank you for being on our show. And to our viewing audience, thank you for watching. Goodbye and God bless.